The crystalline resonance chamber hummed with frequencies that would have shattered human eardrums. But Commander Sarah Chen stood unflinching behind the protective barrier, watching her team work. The alien artifact, a twisted spire of what looked like living metal, pulsed with patterns of light that hurt to observe directly. "Ma'am," called out Dr. Rodriguez from his station, sweat beading on his forehead despite the climate control. "We're getting another transmission. Same pattern as before, but stronger." Chen nodded grimly. For 3 weeks, ever since the ER artifact had been recovered from the Kepler 442b expedition, it had been broadcasting. The signal was complex, mathematical, beautiful in its precision, and completely incomprehensible to human minds. Every attempt to decode it had failed. Every simulation had crashed. The patterns seemed designed for neural architectures that simply didn't exist in human brains. "Any word from the Zephyrian linguistics team?" Chen asked. "Still working on it," Rodriguez replied. "But their preliminary analysis suggests the signal wasn't meant for carbon-based life forms at all. The frequency modulations are too rapid, too complex. It's like trying to read a book written in colors we can't see." Chen watched the artifact pulse again, its alien geometry seeming to shift and writhe. The message was clearly a distress call. That much they'd figured out from the repetitive urgency of the pattern. Somewhere in the galaxy, someone or something was in trouble, desperately crying out for help. The problem was simple. Humanity couldn't understand the message, and, according to every expert they'd consulted, they never would. That's when Lieutenant Jake Morrison cleared his throat from the back of the room. "Permission to speak freely, ma'am?" Chen turned, surprised. Morrison was their communications specialist, but he'd been quiet during most of the briefings. "Go ahead, Lieutenant." "Well," Morrison began, his voice uncertain, "maybe we don't need to understand it." Dr. Rodriguez looked up sharply. "Excuse me?" Morrison stepped forward, his hands gesturing as he tried to articulate his thoughts. "Look, if someone's drowning and they're screaming for help in a language you don't speak, you don't need a translator to know they need help, right? The signal is clearly a distress call. We know roughly where it's coming from, the Andromeda sector. What if we just respond?" "Respond how?" Chen asked, intrigued despite herself. "The same way humans always have. We go there. We help." The room fell silent. Dr. Rodriguez was the first to speak. "Lieutenant, with respect, we have no idea what we'd be walking into. The signal could be from a civilization so advanced that our presence would be meaningless. Or it could be a trap. Or it could be someone who needs help." Morrison interrupted. "And humans, we help. It's what we do. Always has been." Chen studied the young officer's face. There was something in his expression that reminded her why she'd joined the Space Corps in the first place. Before the politics, before the careful risk assessments and the bureaucratic layers, there had been a simple drive to explore, to help, to reach out into the darkness. "The Council will never approve a mission based on a signal we can't even decode," she said slowly. Morrison smiled. "Then we don't ask permission." 3 days later, the UES Prometheus broke from Earth's orbital dock on what the official logs would record as a routine deep space patrol. Only Chen, Morrison, and a carefully selected crew of 30 volunteers knew their true destination. The journey to the Andromeda sector took 4 months, even with humanity's fastest FTL drives. As they traveled, the signal grew stronger, more urgent. Dr. Rodriguez, who had joined the mission despite his reservations, worked tirelessly to extract any information he could from the transmissions. "I'm detecting massive energy signatures at the source coordinates," he reported as they dropped out of FTL. "Whatever's happening out there, it's big." The view screen flickered to life, revealing a sight that made the entire bridge crew gasp. A massive space station, easily 10 times the size of Earth's largest orbital habitats, hung in the void, its hull cracked and venting atmosphere. Around it, strange crystalline ships were locked in desperate combat with what looked like swarms of mechanical insects. "My God," whispered Rodriguez. "They're under attack." The alien station's distress signal intensified, and now Chen could see why no carbon-based life form was supposed to understand it. The beings inside the station weren't biological. They were living crystal, their thought patterns operating at frequencies far beyond human comprehension. But Morrison had been right. Understanding wasn't necessary. All hands, battle stations, Chen commanded. Launch fighters, target those swarm ships, let's even the odds. The Prometheus might have been small compared to the alien vessels, but she was fast and heavily armed. Human fighters swarmed out like angry wasps, their pilots whooping with adrenaline as they engaged the mechanical invaders. The crystalline beings aboard the station must have been as confused as they were grateful. Here were these strange, soft creatures from a distant spiral arm, responding to a call that wasn't meant for them, fighting a battle that wasn't their own. But that was humanity in a nutshell, Chen thought as she watched her crew work with practiced efficiency. They didn't need to understand the call for help. They just needed to hear it. The battle was fierce but brief. The swarm ships, designed to fight crystalline technology, were unprepared for human weapons and tactics. Within hours, the mechanical invaders were retreating into the darkness between stars. As the Prometheus docked with the damaged station, Chen found herself facing beings of living light and crystal. They communicated through harmonics that made her bones ache, but somehow, impossibly, she understood their gratitude. Later, as they prepared for the journey home, Rodriguez shook his head in amazement. They've given us star charts, technology specifications, cultural exchange protocols. How did you know they'd be friendly? Chen smiled, watching the crystalline station recede on the view screen. I didn't, but Morrison was right. Sometimes you don't need to understand the call for help, you just need to answer it. Humanity had always been the species that ran toward danger when others ran away. Now, thanks to 30 volunteers who responded to a signal they couldn't understand, they had allies among the stars. The signal hadn't been for humans, but they'd responded anyway, because that's what humans do.